It is a massive, massive weekend in college football. I changed the landscape weekend. Notre Dame at Miami. I like Notre Dame close. It is Georgia at Auburn. I like Georgia barely. I'm not sure about that. Let me think about it for a day. And then TCU, Oklahoma, I'll take the Sooners. Baker Mayfield, make stuff happen at quarterback. But Urban Meyer lost this past weekend to Iowa on the road. And he was asked a question at a press conference, so let's play the tape.
Urban, you know better than anybody how high the expectations are here. People are asking, wondering, what's going on? What's wrong? Where's the program headed? I know when you came...
Where's the program headed?
Where's the program headed? All right. The media wears me out. But sometimes you're in a press conference and you just ask a question. It wasn't the world's worst question. But let me just give you some numbers. Okay. Urban Meyer took over Ohio State. They were 6-7. He's now gone 44-3 in conference. Okay. 68-8. But let's glom onto that 44-3 in conference. Pete Carroll, when he was dominating the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 back then was not as good as the Big Ten now. It was not. It was full of a bunch of coaches who are now out of work. Pete Carroll was 63-14. Urban Meyer's 44-3. Okay. Urban Meyer's lost 3 conference games in 6 years. By the way, he took over for Luke Fickell. In 2011, Luke Fickell lost 3 games between November 12th and November 26th of that year. Okay. Urban's 68-8 at Ohio State. Of those 8 losses, he scheduled them. Virginia Tech, he got on the phone, will play a top 20 program. Oklahoma will schedule them. You know what Nick Saban never does? Goes on the road out of conference in the last 5 years. He doesn't do that. He plays that big opening game on a neutral field, preferably somewhere below the Mason-Dixon line. No. Next year, Urban Meyer's playing TCU. Where are they playing? In TCU's backyard, Dallas. He also has a road game coming up at Texas, at Oregon, at Notre Dame. He's getting on the phone. And the Big Ten right now, James Franklin, you remember him, the last guy to win at Vandy, now runs powerful Penn State. Jim Harbaugh, you know him, he ended up in a Super Bowl. Mark D'Antoni, Wisconsin staff, Pat Fitzgerald. Do you know the toughest coach right now Nick Saban faces? A guy that 2 years ago was one of his assistants. He's 11-0 against those guys. And then a bunch of Butch Jones and Ed Orgerons. Okay, where's Ohio State headed? I don't know. Outside of Alabama, what's the best program in America today? I'd vote Ohio State. 44-3 in conference. His losses are to Oklahoma, Clemson twice. Sometimes it's been injuries. This year they've got an incredibly young secondary, and because it's a glamour job, he's lost great assistants. Tom Herman left. Tom Herman was the best young assistant in the country. So, Joel Klatt sums it up. Here's Joel Klatt.
If this is struggle, sign me up. He's the one that made the go and get tough.
Certainly.
He's the one that built the SEC into what it is now. That's why they had to chase all those coaches, is to compete with Urban Meyer. Same now in the Big Ten. Why are they paying all their coaches all this money? Because of Urban Meyer.
Here's the games this weekend. Georgia's at Auburn. That's a 3-point game. Georgia has a freshman quarterback. I do not believe a freshman quarterback's going to beat Auburn, Georgia Tech, and Alabama in a row. They'll lose one of those games. This is going to be a must-watch football game. Notre Dame's at Miami. Miami's offense is not as defined as Notre Dame's is, and Notre Dame is good and old up front. They got juniors and seniors, 22-year-old men. Notre Dame's offensive line is the strength of the program. It's really, really good. Their running backs are fantastic. They have a real identity on offense. Now, the question becomes, if Miami plays well early and leads, Notre Dame's not really built to play from behind with that quarterback. I'd probably, though, take Notre Dame. TCU's at Oklahoma. Listen, Oklahoma has a kid named Baker Mayfield. That is a great advantage. He's kind of a Johnny Manziel who appears to have a little better discipline. and I think a little better arm. He's going to win a game the rest of the way for Oklahoma where they get outplayed. TCU's really well coached, deserves their ranking, tremendous program. But you give me Baker Mayfield in a game like this at home, he's just going to make a play, and TCU, as well as they are coached defensively, will not be able to defend it. And then Michigan State's at Ohio State. I think Michigan State's a little overplayed here. Their personnel's good. They have a tremendous defensive coaching staff. They caught Penn State after an emotional game at Ohio State. I think Ohio State corrects itself and wins by a couple of touchdowns. So a really, really profoundly interesting day of college football is coming up. Let's bring on Jason McIntyre on Speak for Yourself, founder of thebiglead.com.
Howdy, Howard. Hey, Jason.
Okay, so let's start with Ohio State.
Your guy, Urban Meyer.
Well, here, I'm going to give you a number just for fun. Hold on.
Good to be back.
It is. It's good to have you back. Urban Meyer has lost very few games. So here it is. Urban Meyer took over a program that was 6-7.
Yeah.
He is now 44-3 in conference.
Impressive.
And by the way, Harbaugh and Franklin and D'Antoni, and I mean, good God, Lovie Smith. It got to a Super Bowl.
You can't put Lovie Smith in
I know,
there, Colin.
but the point is, couldn't I just make the argument? Listen, he's 68-8, and by the way, a lot of the losses too are to Clemson. Alabama's not beating Clemson. I mean, are we being too hard on him?
Well, I don't know. Let's go back to his time at Florida, right?
Right.
He kind of built the modern SEC.
Yeah.
It was ascending, right? They do the expansion. They win 7. I believe the SEC won 7 straight national titles, 8 in 10 years. And Urban was dominant. They win 2 in 4 years with Tim Tebow, and then all of a sudden he's, what are we using, tired, fatigued? He needed to just get out. But the SEC was like, holy cow, that's a murderer's row. So he goes to the Big Ten, which at the time was struggling. Right? 3 yards in a cloud of dust, the conference is down, and he dominates. Well, now, as you just said, the Big Ten's loaded all of a sudden. It's got the most depth in the country, right? Franklin, even Purdue has a good young coach.
Yes.
Northwestern is ascending. Is the Big Ten getting challenging enough that Urban Meyer is saying, man, this is just a lot of work, a lot more work than it was a few years ago. Maybe I move on. It's been 6 years. Florida, I spent 6 years.
Have a national title.
Yeah, I got one in the bag. Why not move on? Why not? Hey, Brian Kelly's having a great year at Notre Dame. What if he goes, this is my shot at the NFL, and Brian Kelly bolts for the NFL? Urban Meyer, I believe in his book, at one time he wrote, that would be my dream job. So I don't think it's crazy that Urban Meyer just says, maybe it's time. I've had a great run here. Let me move on to my next spot. Now, your theory is you love Urban Meyer, right?
Well,
you don't think
my theory is Belichick's his best friend.
All right.
And what more is there to do? Like, you won a national title in the SEC, and you won a national title in the Big Ten. And now, is he a clever and progressive enough play caller? I don't know if he is. He's got a great eye. He reminds me a little of Pete Carroll. He builds great staffs and has a great eye for personnel. It's like Jimmy Johnson will tell you. Jimmy will say, I wasn't the best play caller, but I knew talent. I knew coaches. That's what I think. And so, Urban's a young, what is he,
53, I believe.
I mean, come on, 53. He's got a lot of coaching left.
But at the same time, they returned 15 starters, a senior quarterback, and let's be frank, the last 2 years have not been great. Even though they got to the playoff, they got blasted by Clemson, completely embarrassed, shutout, lost at home to Oklahoma, by 2 TDs when they were favored by a touchdown, and then just destroyed by Iowa this past weekend. You don't see that out of Urban teams. I don't. It just seems an uncharacteristic 2-year run here for the Buckeyes. And frankly, I wouldn't be shocked if he just said, let me move on. Let me just pack my bags. I had a great run here.
Yeah, I don't see it. I think his wife is from Cincinnati, and I think Ohio State's great. I tell people this all the time. I was talking to a buddy about this. I said, what if USC wins out? They'll beat Colorado. Hawley will be there this weekend. They beat UCLA struggling. They do match up with Washington very well, and they win out. They'll probably end up about 6th. They won't make and then they win a bowl game, which they'll have a chance to because they have Sam Darnold, and they end up 4th in the country. They were blown out by Notre Dame and lost to Wazoo.
Yeah.
If you take Alabama out of college football, 10-2.
Yeah, that's
with one ugly loss.
But expectations were huge.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from the newest show on FS1, First Things First, with Chris Carter and Nick Wright.